forces she ignites. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. With every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Oh, what political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. At every post she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political call, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law. Political cow. Political cow. Political cow. Political cow. The beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Breaking the law. Political cow. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. And in her light, dark meets its demise. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. Truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cows, battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise.
Guys, give me 1 sec. I've had it's been a heck of an evening. I'll tell you what, heck of an evening. I just need to kind of get my post up here that I had. You probably saw the admin interface for my my website. Again, I published all my stream notes. I'll get this down eventually. I'll have the let's see, stream notes. Where else we got to go here? Stream notes. Okay. So yeah, politicalcow.com. Publish the stream notes, just stuff I go over. I mean, today's kind of like a look back, really. Just some interesting things that have come up. This is number 25. I can't believe I'm on 25 already. But well, I guess I owe that to you guys, a little bit of gratitude for sticking with me, bearing with me, despite all of the technical issues that I've had over time here. Let me see if I can pull this thing back. There we go. Finally. All right, let's get out of here. Oh yeah, leave page. All right, finally, here we go. It's coming up. Done. Wow, that was like really tough. Hey, what's going on, Tin Man? Kyle, how you guys doing? All right, let me get my chat window up here as well. What is this? Yeah, get my text out of here. I don't know what this is all about. Come on, close. Jeez Louise. All right. Happy New Year. If you're on the West Coast, you might be, what? You've got a couple more hours left? Or no? I guess just under an hour before it's New Year's. We already hit it. I missed it for the East Coast, and I missed it for Central Time Zone where I'm at. But I hope everyone had a nice New Year's. I gave my wife a kiss. I hope you guys did something fun, family, friends, something in between. But of course, for me, what does it make me think of is what's going to happen in 25? What's on the table for 2025? There's still a tremendous amount of activity going on. And, I mean, that's to say the least, right? The recent things, controversies that have been stirred between comments that Vivek's made and Elon, the way that the media is trying to characterize it is, kind of significant disagreement and fracturing within the party. I can't remember who said this, but it's almost like there's certain media outlets that are just rooting for there to be, some sort of a disaster, no matter whose it is. They're just hoping there will be some sort of sensational event that happens, and then they can just be there to film it and, gossip about it, add their own commentary, so forth. Tin Man says, I kissed a stranger in the porta potty. Holy mackerel, Tin Man. Wow. Stranger, I was with you there, and then the porta potty happened. I was like, wait a minute. Where were you at, my friend? I hope you were at some concert outdoors or some outdoor event, man. I don't know. Hopefully. But I don't know. I was trying to set up the stream to where I could take guests. I can't get my integration with TikTok to fully function for me to live stream that. My streaming provider, oh Lord, man, you had me worried, Tim, man. Seriously, had me worried there. I could not get this interface set up properly to work with my multi-streaming provider to kind of broadcast it out to multiple networks at once. So this is unfortunately what I got. Somebody else suggested doing it through Discord, and I set up a Discord server. I don't even know the level of permissions or if it's going to be like a free-for-all, everybody joining the voice chat that you could just set up in there. But one way or another, I want to just try to take folks, take in calls, and kind of like they do the, excuse me, still got that cough. Give me a sec. Like they have the multi-guest feature over there on TikTok. I want to do something similar to that. People just kind of give their opinions and so forth. But anyway, otherwise, the beginning segment, I did have a multi-guest feature through the streaming service set up, but it just didn't work. Everything turned out to be very small. You couldn't see anything on the screen. Was not very functional in my view. So anyway, hang on, even now, just gotta adjust some settings here. All right, there we go. Boom, done. Okay. Hey, that didn't work. All right. So otherwise, I had some questions. I was interested in getting input from people, but I mean, you could drop it in the chat, see how it kind of goes from there. Just what is it that y'all are looking forward to? Favorite memory from this last year. Politics, though. I mean, if it's a personal one, that's fine too. I don't know. For me, it's up in the air. Was it the debate with Biden that Trump had? I don't know. There's a few of them out there that stand out to me. But what was your favorite memory out there? And then looking forward into the new year, the biggest issue that needs to be addressed, and I guess again, anything on the personal side, intentions for the new year coming up. but let me put it in here. Or political memory 24. Biden-Trump debate. Is the new... I'm just punching in the survey here. All right, there we go. But yeah, got started much later than I wanted to. I'm not sure if it's going to go too late in the mix here, but take the poll. Let's see. I appreciate the couple likes that folks have dropped in already. Yeah, again, this is episode number 25. Kind of crazy to me that hitting the 25 mark already. I just had a few topics that I kind of punched in there. Some of them I've discussed or we've discussed before. Some of them might be a little bit new, like this first one, but it's things that in 2025 I think will be of significance that need to have some attention given. And, you know, we may just not be... it may not be on the watch list for a lot of folks. This one in particular. So we've talked quite a bit about tariffs on various countries. You know, Canada, the Prime Minister came and spoke with Trump just basically right after his election victory. Same was the case with many others that were out there. China was no different, though, right? We're saying that we want to, you know, implement tariffs on China, and it's because of some competitive practices and other internal considerations within the United States. Whether it's they want to bring back manufacturing so that we have those capabilities locally. A number of things there. But one thing that there's an unintended consequence of that's come up here recently is centered around specific raw materials that they have an abundance of that we actually procure. I don't think any single country is 100% self-sufficient in all respects. Energy is a big one. There's not... I was almost going to say there are no countries that are 100% fully independent, but there are actually some of the Middle Eastern nations. The OPEC countries probably are. But, a lot of these materials, rare earth metals, so forth, that go into producing different products, we count on China and other countries to import them. So this trade war that's being initiated, there may be an unintended consequence with that, not in terms of supply chain costs going up, but in terms of the availability of some of these products that we count on. So anyway, I thought this clip kind of captured it pretty good.
China has banned the export of some materials essential to the manufacturing of electronics and some military equipment to the U.S. It comes in response to Washington's chip sanctions on Beijing. CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins me now to help explain all of this to our audience. So, Kelly, I guess the question for a lot of people is, how reliant is the United States on these materials?
Very. Okay. So, I mean, you mentioned it. This is a key input in your phones, in defense technology. And I was looking this up. So gallium and germanium, these are two of the materials that China has said we are not going to sell these to the United States anymore. We get over 50% of what we use from China. Now, we do have some of that in our earth, in the territory here in the United States, but we don't necessarily have the infrastructure to tap into that yet. So we're very reliant on it, and we're very reliant on China for this. This is kind of the tit-for-tat trade war we're seeing escalate.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, we often use terms here in this country, and perhaps they do as well in China, that paint the Chinese as our adversaries. Not straight up enemies, but adversaries. And yet, when it comes to the global trade and global economy, we're more tied in together than perhaps it may sound like when politicians pontificate at a podium.
It's a really great point you make. And I think you have seen a lot of countries, not just the US, but China, some of these other nations move away from that global perspective and more towards what we like to call a protectionist mindset. Now, President-elect Trump refers to that as America first.
Yeah, protectionists, the America first. I think there's a little bit of a difference. It's not an absolute analog from one another. China's wonderful, says Tinman. I don't think they're an absolute analog. I mean, protectionism would almost be like an absolute, moving away from globalization in all accounts, right? You'd be closing off effectively. You don't think that there is value in these global interactions. So you're just kind of, it's almost like becoming a hermit to a degree, right? But I don't think that that's what's happening here. The America First concept is, in line with capitalism and free markets. It does recognize, however, that there are instances where, we'd probably have to step in. Sorry, I'm moving some wires out of the way here. You'd probably have to step in. So as an example, Tucker Carlson has always talked about, AI, robotics, like Tesla and other companies creating autonomous vehicles. Passenger vehicles is the first step, but they're going to look at doing long haul, trucks that would, help with our supply chain, and it would really reduce the cost and hopefully improve safety, so forth. But he's taken exception to that because the, workers who are in the transportation industry, there's a pretty significant number of folks that do that for a living. And if they were to be displaced, it would be a significant portion of the economy and the population that would be impacted. And so from, a well-being standpoint of the population, that's not something you would just want to allow flipping the switch on overnight. And that is counter to free markets and a lot of these other things, but trying to have a path as to how you get to that endpoint rather than having it be abrupt and, extremely disruptive. I think that those are a little bit more along the lines of the America First or more conservative mindsets. It's strange though, right? It's kind of like these things have evolved a bit, not necessarily protectionism in the sense of what it was, say, in the early 1900s, that, led to a lot of conflict that was going on around the world. Oh, okay, Tin Man, gotcha. Yeah. And we got 60 says, thoughts on Project Bluebeam. What is that? Let me ask my AI real quick here. I don't have the voice one set up, so I'm going to just pull up the text one. You guys could probably just watch me as I kind of go here. If it loads, everything's been slow this evening. All right, ask me anything. All right, what's going on? Let's... All right. Can you tell me about Project Bluebeam? All right, let's see what that's all about. Hey, what's going on? All right, so Project Bluebeam is a conspiracy theory proposed by Canadian journalist so-and-so. NASA and the United Nations are allegedly working together to establish a new world order. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, I'll just say. So 60. I have no idea what about that. So anyway, I think there's a distinction to be made between absolute protectionists, like what we saw historically in the early 1900s, versus what's kind of going on out there now. That I think is a little bit more aligned with how Tucker Carlson characterizes things. And what is going on? Just maximize our. All right. Man, I am just struggling here, guys. Okay. Close that out. I thought I had some defaults set up already on some of these things, but anyway. Which they will. I hope not. Let's see. Let me let her complete her thought here.
To make America great again, protecting domestic industries. And we're not alone in this, right? I mean, China is doing that same thing of, if you're not going to give us this, we're not going to give you that. And ultimately, yes, your domestic industries get more protected, but on the global scale, it's not always a win-win.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting that, as you know, the president-elect has been making comments about imposing tariffs on China, and he frames it as this is a way for America to win. I thought it was interesting that the Chinese said this is a no-win situation for both the United States and for the Chinese.
Well, because China wants to sell their products to Americans, right? I mean, that's how a lot of these Chinese companies make a lot of money. And the United States also wants to have cheaply produced goods that then companies can sell to their consumers like you and me. And so, yes, President-elect Trump is saying, well, this is going to bring American jobs here. It's going to protect domestic industries. It's going to make any supply chain crisis a lot better for us if we're able to make more things in the United States. But it could also mean that higher prices you see when you go to Walmart or wherever, because so many of the goods that we buy right now are made in China, in Canada, in Mexico, in India, you name it.
All right, so you worked, you worked on Wall Street. You have a background.
All right, so she brought up the supply chain aspect, and the gentleman saying that she worked on Wall Street. Who is this? Is this Margaret? No, I don't recognize who this is. Let me ask to verify, because my understanding is that it was 0.25%, the contribution of all these supply chain uplifts as a consequence of the tariffs. It's 0.25% contributed towards inflation when it peaked at around 9% for CPI. 0.25% of that was because of tariffs, which are still, still persist as of now. So it was not a significant portion. There was an increase, but it wasn't a major portion. So let me ask again here. Say, hey, buddy, tell me. Wait, can you tell me the of CPI during the all right, let's see what it comes back with. During the period which consumer price index, tariffs played a role in influencing, the research indicates that removing tariffs imposed could have reduced CPI by approximately 1.3 percentage points. This suggests, that's different, is the 1.3 and considered an, all right, so that is the upper bound estimate. What is the full range? What is the full range? Because 1.3% is significantly different than 0.25%. All right. I guess they must have some new data points here they're looking at. Okay, so they're saying the range is between 0.5% to 1.3%. All right. So that is fairly significant, actually. That's fairly significant. So less than 0.5%. I was just kind of shrugging my shoulders. All right, negligible, but that's actually significant.
benefits that the president-elect is saying would happen here, which in other words, hiring would go up, or would it be we'd feel the pinch at the supermarkets when we buy anything? That would probably hurt us before we see the benefits of companies hiring more Americans. What do you say?
So if they are implemented, I do think you're going to see the prices go up before you see the jobs, because in order to have jobs come here, you need to have capacity in your manufacturing. All of those things take time. I don't want, though, to concern anyone. Don't go out and buy things that you can't afford right now, because you're not going to see the prices increase immediately. It would take some time to move through for you to see it as a consumer. That's if it's implemented, though, because Vlad, we've talked about this before. This could be a negotiating tactic. The Canadian Prime Minister, the Mexican President have already come to the table and said, hey, let's talk things out. So the hope, I think, right now is that we would never see these tariffs go into effect. China, though, is a different story. I mean, we're already seeing that tit for tat.
Yeah, it's also interesting. The president, president-elect, when he was president before Biden, there's so often, you know this, Kelly, he would tweet about how great the stock market is doing. But if these tariffs go into effect, or even if there's a whiff of these tariffs going into effect and the stock market starts to go down and corporate.
Yeah, so this is all gamesmanship to a degree. A lot of things come down to being a game to me. Tin Man saying maybe 20% here or so. But this is how they try to combat it, right? Is their negotiating point to bring us to the table and we work something out. Of course, there's a lot of things that need to get worked out, intellectual property rights being one of them. And even if there is something on paper worked out, how that's put into effect in practice is another story. But looking at on the X platform, A. Smith commented that China has finally placed this major hold card. They have a large monopoly on rare earth elements and decades of the ability to refine them, which is very difficult to master. Without those, no modern military weapons platform is possible to build, from fighter jets to submarines to sonars. Interesting. Let me ask AI. How much of, let's see, is there on rare? And Terry weapon. Whoa, that was a big answer it just gave me there. It used to let me hit a button and it would read it to me, but I don't see the button anymore. Anyway, okay, so rare earth metals are crucial. Using a variety, high strength magnets, lasers, radar, sonar, so far night vision. It's due to their role in miniaturizing and improving the efficiency of the equipment. For example, I don't even know how to say that. These types of magnets are essential for guidance systems. Okay. The supply chain is a strategic vulnerability. China controls approximately 80% of the global supply of these rare earth elements. Very interesting. 80%, that's massive. So they may not have the energy resources, but they certainly have the rare earth metals that they can kind of hold and, force people to come to the table. So this is a new one that's popping up here, at least that I've seen. And I think it's going to start to come into play in terms of, impacts going into the new year, how that's going to influence negotiations, supply chain, so forth. And then, of course, Scott Jennings, if you haven't heard him on CNN, it's any program that he comes in as a talking head on is pretty darn interesting. He comes across as just very common sense and very even-tempered, where everybody else is, very much overreacting on that network to everything. So his delivery and everything is just kind of like perfect. He's the perfect spokesperson that, from a conservative standpoint, you'd want to have out there.
Over the Panama Canal.
Well, I tell you what is very serious, and that is pushing back on the encroachment of Chinese influence in the Western Hemisphere. Yes, I do.
You think this does that?
I think Donald Trump is trying to send a message to the Chinese, and he's also trying to send a message to everyone else in the hemisphere that I'm not going to put up with this encroachment. Now, what is true is that China is having encroachment in this hemisphere, in Africa, all over the world. They are trying to act like the world's leading superpower. They are trying to exert their values and their way of life all over the world. That used to be our job. And I think what Donald Trump is saying here is, I don't want this in my backyard. America is the world's superpower. More America is better. And I'm sending a message that I'm not going to put up with this sort of creeping Chinese.
So in many respects, that's kind of getting pushed out there. I don't know if you can hear the fireworks going on in the background. It's going pretty crazy out here. Yeah, this guy, we've seen him before. I'll just play it. I have no words.
I'm looking for a man who's at least 6'1", brown eyes, big nose, thick curly hair, hairy, just like furry, just like a carpet on his chest. Not a Zionist, from a Baba culture, Muslim or open to converting.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of problems here with this situation. I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know if I want to begin. But another thing that we may see more and more of, but I'm hopeful that there's not going to be so much of an insistence on political correctness around it, that maybe we can all kind of take that as a moment of levity when it pops up. I think that's all I'm going to say about that topic, just to keep everything super safe here. Let's see. What's next? Oh, yeah. And more, as the inauguration comes up, I think there's going to be more and more telling signs of, the way people frame it is like, who's really running things in the White House? I just look at it, the great lengths they went through to support Biden in continuing his presidency. You've heard Karine jump here on many occasions talk about his reduced schedule, his best hours being from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. And it really, gave people pause, but there wasn't a whole lot of push by media outlets early on to kind of dig into that and to question that. And then you had folks like this, very senior cabinet folks. I think this person was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, I believe, that were indicating they had frequent good conversations with Biden and that, they got a lot of work done, but clearly that was not the case, as more and more information is coming out now that he went weeks without speaking to certain advisors, and that they were, for the most part, kind of left to their own decision-making. There wasn't a real unifying force behind everything that was being orchestrated in the government. Yep.
Would just tell you that I meet frequently with the president, and every single time I meet with him, he is just fine.
So he meets frequently. Every time he meets with him, he's just fine. Very problematic. I think there's going to be more of that starts to get revealed as we start getting going into the thing here. It was specifically on that one. So Wolf, I appreciate the feedback on that. Specifically on this one, there's just some keywords and stuff that I don't want to kind of risk monetization. You know what I'm saying? Because although it needs to be discussed, maybe I would look to do that on a different platform. All right. So something to look forward to next year is when Trudeau is voted out and Canada has new leadership behind it. I think Pierre Poilievre, I'm not exactly sure how to say his last name. The story that he told here was very relevant, not just for Canadians, but I thought it was also relevant for folks in the United States too. I think he actually really understands what folks are dealing with, and he genuinely cares. So I'll play this, and the takeaway I have is that we need more people that want to kind of dig in and understand what people are dealing with day in and day out, especially with everything that's happened in the last 4 years in terms of inflation, wage growth, and then what's coming up potentially in terms of a market down cycle that we're likely going to go look at. And I'll pull up a chart here in a little bit too. Oop. Looks like we got to pull this one up over here.
When I travel across this country, I consistently meet two types of people. One, those who are a little better off and tell me that, and I'll be very blunt about this, that if I don't win, they will leave the country. And they are very numerous. Yes. But I don't worry about them as much. You know who I worry about? The ones who can't leave. The ones who don't know, and if I can just use very blunt language, who tell me I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I have no idea how I'm going to pay my way. That's right. I met a waitress at a restaurant not long ago, and she came up to me and she grabbed me by the hand and she said, "You have to win." And I said, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate your support." She said, No. It wasn't a compliment. You have to win." And then she told me her story. She told me that she was working one full-time job and two part-time jobs just to pay her bills. As a single woman in her late 50s. And she was tired of working all the time. So she cut everything out of her budget, every creature comfort, everything she enjoyed about her life, she cut it out so that she could drop one of those part-time jobs. And then one morning, she woke up and she walked outside and her car was gone. And she called her insurance and they said they weren't going to cover the replacement value. So she had to take that job back because she simply cannot live her life without a car. Now you can bet your bottom dollar the guy who stole the car, he was probably out on bail. This was not his first job.
That's right.
Her taxes have gone up. Her heating bill has gone up. Her wages have not gone up. She's scared to go out in the streets in places where they didn't even lock the door not long ago. These are the people we're fighting for. These silly games over here, they're very entertaining. The soap opera that everyone's seized with today, that's all fine. But there are real people whose lives are on the line here, and we have a duty to work for them. And quite frankly, this woman doesn't see me as or any of us as any kind of savior. They see us all as a last hope. In fact, she doesn't want to be saved. She just wants her life back.
Exactly.
She was taking care of herself just fine before her tax, her heat, her grocery bill went through the roof and her car went missing. She was doing just fine. She was doing everything right. Met another guy at the Labrat Brewery a few days ago, and you can watch the video of me talking with him. He walked up to me and he said, "I have 3 jobs and I can't make it. We're renting. We have no hope. We've given up on ever owning a home. We're renting. We can barely make it." And he said to me, "I feel ashamed when I talk to my kids because they ask me why I'm never around and why we can never have a house. And I feel like a failure." But he didn't fail. He has been failed.
That's right.
He has been robbed of the promise of Canada. It was a very simple promise that if you worked hard, you got a good life. Now, it wasn't fancy or extravagant, but you got a house with a yard where you could have kids playing safely. And you could have a nice dog that you could afford to feed along with the kids. And your kids could play safely in the streets. That was the promise. Now, politicians break promises all the time. But you know what was bad about this promise? This promise didn't belong to this prime minister. It wasn't his promise to break. It belonged to all of us. And our purpose is to bring home that promise for that young man, that young father, and that older female worker so that they can once again take back control of their lives, live in a safe country where their hard work earns them a good wage, where the rent and their food is affordable, and where when they go to bed at night, they know that they will be safe throughout their sleep and that they will have their car in their driveway in the morning. A country where people are proud again to fly the flag, where they know the government is a servant and not a master, where they understand that every day the Commons, this place, works for the common people, not for the ego of one man desperate to cling on to his job. We must remember that we are servants in this place. We have a job to do on behalf of the people who sent us here. Our personal dramas are not important. The dramas that should seize all of our concern and imagination are the daily dramas of the working women and men that build this country. We are in it for them. We're going to give them back control of their lives in the freest country on earth, Canada. Let's bring it home.
Come on, get up, Lambert.
All right. Appreciate that. So, just looking at the comments here, Wolf saying keeping everything super. Oh, you already talked about that. This Communist Party in China has definitely brought Biden's along with every liberal. Hollywood's already begging China's mercy. Over 60% of the federal government. This bureaucracy inflated only exists to find ways to exist regardless of how many people has to get hurt. Our national farce is on constant display. I think, the commentary here that he gave, I mean, it wasn't really commentary. He just spoke of direct experience, interactions he's had with real people, observations that are being made across the board. I mean, there's data that supports this. It's not just people's opinions. You can clearly see it in the data. And the real danger is that we're at a point where we cannot just inflate the economy and inflate Wall Street into an artificial, phase of growth. We're getting to that tipping point. Other data points need to be looked at. I keep saying this over and over again, but they ignore real data points that kind of show you how people are really doing. And they just point to, look at the Dow. It's up tremendously over this past year, right? If you were invested, you'd have made 50% on your money. But in all honesty, there's so many people that are just paycheck to paycheck. They're not sitting here trying to invest and try to grow their wealth. They're not even at a point to be able to think like that, let alone, kind of make ends meet month to month. So yeah, national farce. They're, Pierre is clearly articulating it, Canada scenario, which, as crazy as it sounds, I think they're in a much more difficult spot than we are in the United States. But data just came out recently. Let me see if I can find it here. Can you look up recent credit card default data that has been released? So new data came out. I don't know if they'll be able to find it on the AI or not. Yeah, so here it is. Recent data shows that a significant rise in credit card defaults in the United States are happening. The defaults on these loans have increased by 50%, reaching the highest level since 2010. Okay. What was happening in 2010? You had 2008, the inklings of the financial crisis starting. 2009, it really hit the fan early in the year. I think the market hit its low in March. And then there was continuing ramifications that ran through the economy, hitting people, folks defaulting on homes, credit, so forth. So 2010, we were still kind of in the thick of it at that point in time, right? So in 2009, and maybe in the latter portion of 2008, it probably was higher. But as of right now, defaults increased by 50%, and they're at the highest level since 2010. So basically, very close to the financial crisis. And you got to think, are we on a track to, improve from there? Or what is the economy looking like right now? I think in so many respects, they were trying to mask and kind of hide the jobs data and a lot of other data points just to help ensure that that re-election can happen. I'm talking about the Democrat Party. The November jobs report just kind of absolutely destroyed them, right? Let's see, both parties in the USA are controlled by corporate interests, says John Hogg. Without a doubt, there's a lot of money that flows through Congress that is, super, super questionable. So got to get the money out of their special interest money, lobbying money. And those scenarios, I mean, they do the stock trading, the insider trading, but I mean, aside from that, there's those scenarios where, they'll, I heard an example of, book publishing recently. They'll approve funding for some of these major corporations, book publishers. Say it was like, $100 million of funding for a given publisher. And then once they retire and they leave office, somehow miraculously they'll get a deal for $20 million or so from that publisher. And this continues to happen time and time again, and you scratch your head like, what does that exactly mean, right? Why does this seem to be the norm? The publishing is I think is one on my mind because I think it was announced that Harris had a publishing deal, and I'm not suggesting that that's what's going on there, but it's happened enough times in the past that you start to question, like, what's happening with these corporate situations, right? It doesn't seem quite right. So there needs to be some accountability, restriction on term limits, more or less, that prevent people from entering into those types of scenarios, right? Taxpayer-funded elections would neutralize Citizens United. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff. I don't know the details on how to exactly make it work. I hear some folks, get very granular about it, but I just know that the current way we're going about it is not to anyone's benefit at all. Having so much corporate money free-flowing, and it's not all very clear, right? Some of it goes into a political action committee. Some of it flows, like I was pointing out, through opportunities that take place after one leaves office, whether it's being hired on as a consultant, as a lobbyist, or being given a book deal. It's very intermingled. It's very opaque as to, how this stuff happens. I mean, somebody enters into Congress, modest salary, modest net worth, and they leave multimillionaires. And I'm not just talking like they hit $1 million. I mean, they've got tens of millions of dollars in the bank all of a sudden, right? That's absolutely right, Joe. So Joe, that comment needs to kind of get pinned right there. The USA has the best darn politicians that money can buy. There's so many of them too. You look at the House, you look at the Senate, state, local. It's really unfortunate, right? That it's like this across the board. And so that's, I think, what gave rise to Trump back in 2016 was that growing, excuse me. It was that growing dissatisfaction that was an outgrowth of the financial crisis, 08, 09, going into 10, where the Tea Party kind of surfaced, that folks were not okay with the banks getting bailed out rather than individuals. I mean, a clear decision was made there. They started talking about a moral hazard of taking one approach versus another, right? And so the Tea Party kind of surfaced as a consequence of that. Now it got, branded in one way or another, but I thought it was somewhat closely aligned with the folks that were doing the Occupy Wall Street thing, even if it was, maybe not the same individuals, but it was the same sentiment, more or less, that we need to fix the system to work, to give opportunities to people and to individuals not to reinforce, established corporate giants, let's say, right? Or just, sustaining the current social order, right? Because if somebody makes a bad call in a capitalist society, then they took that risk and it didn't work out, and the consequences, follow, unfortunately. But the government can't be used as a continuous safety net to prevent consequence over and over again, right? The donor class runs U.S. policy. I mean, that's absolutely the scenario that we need to get out of. But that sentiment of there being a clear donor class, of banks getting bailed out, consolidations being allowed to happen within banks, that's not been in the best interest of consumers long term. That's where the Tea Party came from, and they did get a few people elected into office. I mean, in Congress, more or less. But then they quickly were absorbed, and the movement somewhat dissipated. It's not to say that the energy was lost, but the mainstream Republicans figured out how to kind of, just subdue them. But that didn't really solve the problem. People were still upset. And so when Trump came on stage in the 16 election cycle, and he completely annihilated all of the Republican candidates that are on that stage, Jeb Bush famously, right, just completely ending his political career for him. That's what resonated so much with people, that they needed somebody to kind of acknowledge those things for him, to be that outsider. And that's how he's been received since then. It's not perfect by any stretch, but the establishment was seen as very problematic. And there were people like Paul Ryan and others that were taking, were removed from office, or he actually resigned, I believe. But there's still a pretty significant core, because if you look at the average age of Congress, there's a considerable number of folks that are in their late 60s, 70s that have been in office forever, right? I mean, the lion's share of their career has been, a politician, not doing something in the real world, which is in itself problematic. And another reinforcement of why we need term limits. Same conversations today, same conversations of Occupy Wall Street 13 years ago. Yeah, and so is this the time where politicians, whomever it is, finally fix the system? Because it is a systemic problem that it's not working for everybody. And the comments that Pierre made underscored that for Canada. It's the system that's not working. And the politicians that they have in power, Trudeau in particular, are oblivious to the needs of folks. In fact, they lecture them, right? You need to take on this climate policy. It's not important that you can't make ends meet. You got to do this and make this sacrifice for the greater good. But honestly, how can you tell people that, right? And so there's so many people in Congress, and they're, as y'all are pointing out in the chat, they're rather self-serving to a significant degree. What will it take for them not to stand in the way of this? I mean, recently here with the continuing resolution, there was a group of 30 Republican House members that got in the way of some of the early versions of a revised bill getting passed. It's like, how can they do that? The Republicans just won the election. Trump just won the election. You think you'd favor, unity and kind of moving things forward at a rapid pace. You'd favor getting that agenda going across over your individual, demands, benefits, right? Because that's kind of what happens. Everyone has to get appeased along the way. Everyone needs to get a cut and have their earmark added into a given bill, which is what takes these processes so long to unfold. And then also why there's so much waste in government, because everyone wants to, one, bring back to their districts like, oh, I, got this new road project for $1 billion, but I represent a rural area that, we don't need to build these bridges, but we've got this funding, so let's build that bridge to nowhere. But interestingly now, with the new crew that Trump has surrounded himself with, he's learned his lesson. He's not bringing in those same old folks from last go around or the establishment people. Elon Musk is saying that he's going to actually fund primary challenges around folks that are not falling in line. And that's been misconstrued. I take it very differently than what it means on the surface or how it sounds on the surface, right? They're kind of saying that, Elon is the ruling caste and he's running the show now by saying these types of things. I take it as that, like, don't put your old school earmarks in there. Don't waste money anymore. Vote on the merits of something and let that be transparent. But if you're going to hold things up out of an act of selfishness, then yeah, you probably aren't in the right job. This probably needs to be a change that's made. And to me, that's where he's coming from on this. See, Joe, you got a few more comments here on YouTube. USA has been, General strike, shut it down. Excuse me, guys. So let me play this clip here, which y'all have probably heard this already, but
right now in the past 30 or 40 minutes here that they might try to pull this interim spending bill off the floor and maybe just go with a clean bill. Unclear what that means for disaster assistance. Here's what happened. A post on X by Elon Musk sent shockwaves through the Capitol. House Republicans were trying to see if they have enough votes to pass the spending bill in the next hour or two. Musk posted that anyone who votes yes should lose their office in 2 years, and lawmakers are scrambling.
Tweets from Musk, has that complicated this?
Well, I think that there's always a lot of
Now, John Thune, to me, is old school establishment Republican. You could see from his facial expressions, he has a bit of a smirk. He has a very controlled tone. He's good at this delivery. And he's just playing, the cards that he's been given here at this point. I don't feel super good about him. He was elected, was it 2004? Somewhere around that time frame? He actually defeated Tom Daschle, who I think was the majority leader in the Senate at that point in time, when it was controlled by Democrats, if my memory serves. But again, he is, though, old school establishment, not really 100% aligned with everything that's, the changing wave that has, come over DC now.
interest in what's happening up here, and
This is more than interest. They're telling people if they vote yes, they should be voted out.
the social media world is a part of our politics, and I think members have to expect that. There will be a lot of hard votes in the next couple of years.
A member of the House Republican leadership told Fox that Musk is not helping. The lawmaker added that Musk has bigger fish to fry than picking a fight with House Republicans. One source said the bill is now bleeding support from the GOP. When asked how many Democrats the GOP needs to pass the bill, a senior aide replied, quote, a lot. Lawmakers who had hurricanes devastate their districts are torn.
The fact is that, look, this is a sandwich. I don't know how else to say that. We're being forced into this position. They could have done a standalone. They did this because they knew that it would put members in this position to support it. We're damned if we do. We're damned if we don't.
Now, the bill has about $100 billion in disaster relief, nearly $30 billion to restock FEMA's coffers.
All right. So, again, the rundown of all the pork, like you're mentioning here, that was included in there. It was an opportunity for folks to come out there and give some sound bites and state the obvious. But are they really going to do anything to change it? That's the part that we don't really see and don't have a whole lot of, access. And just people in general. Everyone's trying to just live their life day to day. Not everybody's, diving deep or continuously monitoring these things as they go. I don't know everything either, right? I'm not 100% every minute of the day vested in, watching things as they unfold, reading bills as they kind of get through. There's a lot of information that's floating around now. And in some respects, I feel like they count on that to continue and perpetuate this system, right? Yeah, and division is the tool that they use, and they base it on things that honestly don't matter. At the end of the day, things that may be resolved that we can all kind of rally around. I don't think anybody argues, racism is bad. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Yet there's a continuous effort to focus on that, and then it takes away, people that, might have looked into this kind of stuff here, right? So I know Elon is, having a strong hand, a strong voice in saying he would primary people that are not falling in line, declaring this as, a horrible bill, full of pork, as was mentioned, that needs to be, voted down or not voted on at all. It just needs to be, removed from the docket. It's a new thing that's happening right now. I can't think of another example of somebody outside of the government that's brought in these types of perspectives, but I take that as part of, who Trump is surrounding himself with this cycle, that he wants those disruptors. He wants the way things that have been done for the past 50, 100 years, he wants that to be disrupted. And to me, that's a good thing, because it's resulted in a lot of folks being last, and not because they weren't able to compete or just because of the risks they took not working out. This is a case where the system is kind of removing opportunities from folks. It's just not, it's not the same as it was in the past. So anyway, this one's an interesting one, right? That Elon is stepping in and kind of making things clear that, hey, people need to do things in the right way. And of course, that bill was, I'm hoping some of these things change for 25, right? Because we've talked some of these things in the past 25 episodes. This is 25th one now. Crazy. And if you haven't already, give the live a like, subscribe. Got more stuff coming up during normal business hours. I had a bunch of tech difficulties. Caused me to jump online here a bit late, very late. I was hoping to be online for Central Time hitting the new year, but that didn't exactly work out. But so that spending bill is a good example of, it was 1,500 pages, less than a half a day for people to review it. I mean, no one's going to be able to review it in that time. You'd have to run it through some sort of AI, and even then, would it correctly summarize and interpret and, help you decipher whether things were good or bad, or would it still produce a massive list of things that you would have to go through that there's no realistic way you could in that amount of time? And so famously now, right, you go back to, this might be around 2010 time frame. I don't remember the exact timing of it, but you go back to the architect of Obamacare, and the branding, the complexities, the volume of verbiage, let's say, and paperwork that's kind of thrown at people. He was indicating it's all by design, right? And so again, what kind of a system does that create, that by design you're looking to be opaque and confuse people, overwhelm them with just unimportant things? So I mean, here's this comment from way back when, and I think it's very much the strategy that is continuing on both sides that needs to change.
It's just, you can't do it politically. You just literally cannot do it. Okay? Transparent financing, unless I have transparent financing, also transparent spending. I mean, this bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay? So it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in he made explicit the healthy people pay and the sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like the people, lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass. And, it's the second best argument. Look, I wish Mark was right. We can make it all transparent. But I'd rather have this law than not. So it's kind of like his reporter story. Yeah, there's things I wish I could change, but I'd rather have this law than not.
So first of all, you haven't publicly commented on this so far. Do you stand by the comments in that video?
The comment in the video were made at an academic conference. I was speaking off the cuff. And
another Massachusetts hero, John Kerry, more like the staff, came up with.
So anyway, this clip goes on to demonstrate the, hypocritical, back and forth that he had with himself, right? Going on MSNBC and, trying to walk back some of his comments. And yet, in multiple occasions, he's here referring to the general population as uninformed, unintelligent, so forth. And that this was... the narcissism behind it is, and it happens all the way around. This is just a very clear example that's pretty well known. The narcissism behind it is there's this subset of individuals that think they know what's best for everyone. They know what's best on your behalf. And that would be whether to kind of take your money and spend it on your behalf through additional taxes, compel you to do things from a legal standpoint. Otherwise, there's, a lot of times there's financial penalty behind it. That was some of the early scenarios that unfolded with Obamacare. I mean, I had an aunt that she was a realtor and she was compelled to go into the market and get insurance through it versus keeping the one she had. And her monthly rates skyrocketed, $3,000 a month, to where it was less expensive to pay the penalty, right? So, I mean, ridiculous things happen. And I don't know in this gentleman's case if it's he just wanted to win or if he truly believed that he knew what was best and that he believed other folks just were not up to par with his intellect to be able to kind of see that. I don't know, but that's the kind of narcissism that we need to get out of politics all the way around, right? All right, so that was the last one I had here for this. Let me check out the comments real quick. GOP or DNC, both parties are corporate parties. Yep, all the way around. All the way around. Excuse me. All the way around, we've got a lot of problems on that. Drop the AI. All right, let me just go back to my homepage here. Oops, what did I push? Why is it showing me this old one now? Okay, I don't know why the page is not refreshing. I've got it refreshed on a different screen, but it's just not deciding to refresh over here. Okay, bizarre. Anyway, check out politicalcow.com. Stream notes over here on this side with each of the different live streams that we have, and then accompanying that. If you had a full view on your desktop, you'd see them side by side, but accompanying that, we have links to each of the streams then as well. Actually, all the videos that we've got. This one's I like this one I did recently here. Why is it not making a video here? Let's see. Oops, let's start it over.
I think this guy is a genius.
All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
Anyway, so gotta have some fun with some of it, right? But again, politicalcow.com, notes and stuff that we go through. Tonight's is a little bit more incomplete, just so I was hoping to do something a little bit different in terms of New Year's, talk about folks' resolutions and so forth. Just my new, I don't know if I just don't have the right plan or what. New streaming service provider was not connecting properly. Or then once it did, everything was kind of small and didn't really work out, so I couldn't take guests on. So I got to sort that out a little bit. But anyway, quicker stream this evening. Let me see how much we've got. Did we hit? Just under 1,000. Not too bad. I mean, this is pretty late at night. So not too bad getting under 1,000 folks kind of swing through here. Taxpayer-funded elections would neutralize this. Yeah. How we decipher who receives what level of funding for that would be important, because it wouldn't be good to help out with having a lot of candidates and having to dish out equal sums for each of them. There'd have to be some sort of a determining factor. I don't know what that would be, but is it Landrieu? Mitch Landrieu or Mary? Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. I don't know which Landrieu you're talking about. All right, guys. That's all I got. Give it a like, subscribe. This was just a quick stream, just under 1,000 folks run through here this go around. Take a look at Ground News. They've got a 50% discount right now. I got a link in the description on YouTube, other social networks that you might be watching through. I've got that link in my bio. It's just a link to my link tree, which has a link to the discount code or the discount hyperlink that you can kind of get from there. But check out Ground News. It does a nice job illustrating the bias on different news agencies, on different stories, and the talking points that each side is kind of using to kind of give you a more holistic picture of things. I find it easier to just run through their summaries than on my own, that I'd previously have to go look through, 5, 6, 7, 8 different articles sometimes to get a complete story behind it. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Look to do this tomorrow during normal business hours when we got more people online. All right, take care, everybody.
Darkness falls, truth emerges. Political cow unveils the lies. Behind the screen, wisdom surges, lighting up hate with her eyes. In the shadows, secrets lurk. She exposes, she ignites. With every post, she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. With every post, she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Oh, what? Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. Her voice cuts through, stark and raw, shattering deception, breaking the law. Icons crumble, empires fall. She stands tall, fierce and cold. Her voice echoes a thunderous call. In the chaos, her strength unfolds. False prophets scatter, truth ascends. The world watches, mesmerized. Political cow's battle never ends. In her light, dark meets its demise. Political cow, the beacon bright, unveiling truth, banishing night. At every post, she does the work, unmasking darkness, revealing lights. Political cow, the beacon Politics gather, truth ascends, the world watches, mesmerized. Political cows battle never ends, and in her light, dark meets its demise. False prophets